Welcome back to Senate Economic Development and General Affairs. It is still the 15th, the Ides of January, and we're going to live dangerously and have a walk with lunch. Oops, maybe we will walk dangerously with Senator Jim.
Something.
So, I don't know if you know everybody on our committee. Have you met, and you've now met David? Megan, have you met David?
8 weeks.
Megan Sullivan.
Rutland County. Megan, nice.
Oh, yeah.
So if you would be kind enough to introduce yourselves for the record and introduce the person you brought along, that would be great.
Yeah.
And welcome.
Thank you so much for having us today. For the record,
And Sir Heidi Parker, who you have just met, our new assistant.
yes, there it is. Welcome.
Key part of our team.
Yes. So for the record, my name is Amy Spear. I'm the president of the Vermont Chamber of Commerce. It's nice to be here today, joined by Megan Sullivan, vice president of government affairs for the Vermont Chamber. And we have a third team member with us today. Can you introduce yourself as well?
Jeremy Little, Policy and Outreach Associate.
Jeremy joined the chamber this summer and was an legislative intern of ours a couple of years ago. So you might recognize that.
You actually are quite familiar.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. So take it away.
Wonderful. I will share my screen. So we're going to provide an overview of the Vermont Chamber of Commerce, a little bit about our organization, our government affairs lens that we use, a little bit of a touch on the Vermont Futures Project, which is the foundation of the Vermont Chamber of Commerce. I know Kevin Chu is very excited to come in.
Well, Kevin True is not available until February. Which, given that he has set the bar on a number of our areas of jurisdiction, is a little frustrating. Sorry, Kevin, but it is. So we will look forward to hearing from him, but we would love as much as you can glean in terms of some of our challenge. That would be great.
Yes, absolutely. When Megan talks through some of our priorities for the year, there's some data that Kevin provided that she can shed some light on as well.
Great.
So diving right into who we are as an organization, at the core of what we do, we advance the Vermont economy, and we do that through advocacy, community, and resources. So, of course, you mostly see our government affairs team, but Senator Clarkson, thank you for presenting at our Solution Summit this fall, which is a focus on workforce. Going forward, that will be an event focused on the work of the Economic Action Plan. So how that's coming to life around the state. We have a team of 13 professionals. We represent businesses from all 14 counties, large businesses, small businesses across all sectors. The Vermont Futures Project, as I mentioned earlier, is the foundation of the Vermont Chamber of Commerce. It's an independent, nonpartisan organization. They're really focused on the economic future of our state, and they do so through research and education. So really focused on data-informed planning, and then also getting a lot of feedback to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction and having a diversity of perspectives at the table when we're looking at economic action planning.
And am I not correct in believing that Vermont Futures Project was a baby of the Vermont Chambers?
Yes.
I mean, you planted that seed and watered it, and now it's standing on its own 2 feet, right?
Yes, it's an independent, nonpartisan.
But it didn't begin that way. So remember the first rollout of the Futures Project, which was the last time.
12 years ago?
Yeah.
Yes, Jeff with his bow tie.
That's right.
It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as I mentioned, Kevin will be releasing the statewide economic action plan on January 28th this year.
Why we're going to see him in February, right after the publication of that.
Absolutely. And so he'll have a summary document that'll be an easily digestible, one sheet, but then it's also a large, thick plan that has a lot of detail and data and analytics and all the feedback they heard on the statewide tour. But if you think of the framing you'll hear when he's here in September, it's really focusing on the people and places, the data informed policy behind that, and then also some recommendations to move our state forward. One of the things we do want to highlight are 2 of our major member areas that we pay very close attention to: tourism and hospitality. Prior to serving as the president of the Vermont Chamber, I was the vice president of tourism for 5 years. So I would come into this committee occasionally, but I was the lead on also organizing for our visitor economy day as well. So just a snapshot on what that impact is for our state. It's about 10% of our workforce, $3 billion in visitor spending every year, $456 million in tax revenue, and that's from over 13 million visitors annually. These are analytics provided by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. I believe they have some updated numbers that you'll receive this year, but it doesn't fluctuate that much, but that'll give you a good snapshot of that portion of the economy. It's also a large portion of our membership base.
Before you move on,
Yeah.
the next question. So there you go. So the $3 billion for visitor spending, what's that like percentage wise for the total spend in the states? Or can you like, it's a big
Yeah.
number, but can you give a sense of?
So it's the second leading contributor to Vermont's GDP.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the pie of our state, the major contributors, you have manufacturing, which is great that it's the leading contributor
Not
because that's
government.
it's high. It is
No.
very high,
Okay.
but not the leading.
No.
So there's a saying, Team Vermont is one way to think of it. Tourism, education, agriculture, and manufacturing. There should be an H in there as well for healthcare for the major contributors to our economy, but $3 billion. So it's number 2, and number 1 is manufacturing.
We don't want to forget that the federal government makes a big spend through the Air Guard and the National Guard, but that wouldn't be counted, I don't think.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
David, is that, are you?
No, it's
That-
good.
okay.
It's me a sense story.
And then manufacturing represents about 8% of Vermont's workforce, a little over 27,000 employees, a $2.92 billion impact. So you'll see this is a little bit outdated, but they're right around 3 billion. Sometimes they go back and forth, tourism and manufacturing.
And then if I can, this is a snapshot in time, but is the trend up? Is the trend down? Is the trend flat? I mean, that's another piece that has a lot of impact.
Yeah, I would say it's very difficult to operate as a manufacturer in Vermont. I mean, it's difficult at any point in time, but when you're looking at the continuum of operations, there's a lot of strain, really part of it rooted in our demographic challenges. You see some portion of manufacturing has grown as a result of pandemic, for example. So Karis Reels, the largest reel producer, I believe, in our entire country, has seen a kind of a boom on some sides, but some other sides have fluctuated.
What is it?
Karis Reels. So they make reels. They're
Bill
based-
was in the Senate for quite a while.
Oh, this is Bill Karras's
Yeah.
company. Okay.
Yeah,
So I knew Bill.
it's so cool. It's
Bill
really
and Barbara
cool.
had the bees, and now their daughter is.
Yes.
For some, to then just like the size of this.
Yeah, so anything from telecom reels to what you might see in a home improvement store if you're doing wiring in your house or anything like that. So largest
Somebody
producer-
has to be the largest producer.
somebody
And
does.
that's
And we're glad it's in Vermont, David.
We're glad.
So that's all good background.
Mhm.
But is the trend flat? And both tourism, manufacturing, these are the major movers.
Yeah, so tourism, I would say, has seen a little bit of a boom, but there was also that pent up demand, and it really is related to consumer spending and consumer confidence. So in times where there is a positive perception of the economy or people are feeling good about their checking accounts, their bank accounts, they spend more money in tourism. So right now we're growing. So when the agency comes in here with their updated numbers, you'll see more than 3 billion in economic impact there. I think manufacturing, correct me if I'm wrong, is relatively flat in that space.
But
And I know there's a lot of bated breath to see what happens at the federal level, because yes, there's a lot that has to do with, the Vermont ecosystem for manufacturing, but there's also supply chain implications and many other pieces and components that tie in there.
And inflation.
And inflation.
Pieces are.
Yeah.
Kidding.
good, thank you.
And we do host a manufacturing summit every year. And we have partners from the aerospace corridor that reaches from Quebec all the way down to Connecticut that are present for that. But we really have a strong aerospace and advanced manufacturing sector. But there's also very strong, cookie cutters, for example, in Rutland County, which I enjoy visiting as well. So moving on a little bit. more about our advocacy team, really how we try to operate as we're interacting with legislators and what we're doing in the State House and to prepare. We try to be very proactive and data informed. We would prefer a collaborative approach. I know you work very closely with Megan on a lot of issues, so thank you to everyone for your willingness to hear a diversity of perspectives and work with us collaboratively on our efforts in this.
So just, you advocate, how many businesses do you actually represent? How many members do you have?
So we have over 900 members, and we're the largest statewide business organization.
The vast majority of which are hospitality and tourism.
Hospitality, tourism, and manufacturing. And then professional services is the next largest segment, which makes sense because it's a reflection of our economy.
Yeah.
Since you're off, what town is that?
This is Newport.
Okay.
A little bit more about our advocacy team. All the three of us introduced ourselves, but I also want to. Okay, so there's Karen Duguay is also a member of our team. She is the lead on our industry days in the State House. So Tourism Economy Day, and then we'll also be having a manufacturing day. So she's our industry engagement. She's our senior director of programming. She also brings all of our events to life. Yeah.
If we,
Excuse me.
usually there's more than one.
Okay.
If we have we recently structured something around the care economy, and do you have members that would be interested in a day focused on the care economy? I just feel like it's something we need to be organizing around more or wrapping our minds around more. And I don't know if that's come up.
Well, if you know, bigger with our demographic.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime we look at challenging aspects of our economy, we always have members that are willing to be at the table and have that conversation and appreciate the abilities to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if Karen could maybe the care economy day alongside others, that would be great.
We can put that in the hopper.
Thank you.
And I think next, I pass it to Megan.
All right. So, talk a little bit about what we're thinking about coming into this legislative session and really focusing the work that we're hoping to do around building a stronger Vermont. So we've sort of put this into three broad buckets. One is around affordability, and we've got I think it's not even no one's surprised that Vermonters are really struggling with affordability, and that it brings true for individuals in the state as well as businesses. We also know that it's important for our ability to attract new Vermonters. We're seeing data trends around where migration shifts are happening, and that there are a lot of folks moving to lower cost states in that age range of 25 to 46. And that's an age range we really want to bring here. We think we can be doing more, and I'll talk about that later, to really promote why Vermont is a great choice to live. And at the same time, we need to be looking at, where are these costs that are high. We've seen, whether it's education costs or housing costs. And this committee has done really incredible work around housing costs. And I think there continues to be more conversations to have, that we have to look at those root causes of the problem. What are driving costs up so much? Why does it cost $500,000 to build one unit of affordable housing?
It's almost a 600,000.
Yeah, it's crept up.
Yeah.
So
It's mind-bending.
So-
It's just gobsmacked.
Right. So we support the need to invest in housing, but also that investment needs to go further. If we're going to invest, we've got to be looking at how do we also reduce the costs. So whether that's through permitting processes. We were deeply involved in the work and continue to be involved in the Act 250 reforms. Was on the stakeholder group that worked on some of the initial framework last year. I'll be on the tier 3 group and the appeals group. So we're going to stay really engaged in those conversations to ensure that process is getting improved and getting out of the way for housing development in those areas where we want to see housing grow. But there's other pieces, right? We hear a lot about Act 250 because it's the last piece. That's the last permit you have to get. And if you've already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on all the rest of your permits, and that last permit then gets appealed, it's brutal. But that's not to say the rest of the process doesn't also need to get looked at.
Right.
You know, where are there redundancies between what the state is doing and what the town is asking, and is it all value add when we're trying to push housing growth in the areas across the state, you know, whether it's our rural towns to our larger towns. So we're going to be continuing when we're talking about some of these really hard issues around how do we address affordability from a reform perspective, not just a funding perspective.
Who is on your appeals group? Because needless to say, appeals is a top priority of this committee.
Yeah.
Who is on your appeals? If you could get
I
that.
have to look. I don't. So
Is it a sub?
it's coming out of the new LURB, I believe.
Great.
And
And there are a bunch of ideas
But
about that.
that's
Blur.
the land use
Land
review board. We're not formally the.
Call it the LURB,
Formally,
Everyone is.
LRB.
I feel like if you're going to be on the LURB, if you really want to do that work, then embracing being on the LURB is going
I
to be
think
like a state.
LRB.
Like, all right, I'll be
It's a
on the
good
LURB
start. We
because
have a
I
good team
really
put together.
find this work.
Yeah, it's a good word for an organization that operates at top speed.
Well, we don't know what
We're
speed
working
they're
on it.
operating on
It
yet
sounds
because
like
they told us
flubber,
it's
something like, it should be.
So affordability is the first piece.
A first piece. The next piece, and we're gonna get more into this. Next piece is
Excuse me,
increments.
before we leave affordability.
Yeah.
So we're clear on your concerns about cost.
Yeah.
What are you doing about concerning on the other side, the revenue side?
Well, I think
What
first
people earn?
Oh, that's different.
wage tech,
It's not, it's
Yeah.
all a piece of affordability.
right? Well, and I think we all
Yeah, I mean,
have a role in the wage side. So there is data, and we can send the graph that shows, you know, as businesses grow, wages get better. We're great at startups. We don't do a great job of retaining and growing our businesses.
Right.
So part of that is if we have manufacturers who are getting calls from other states daily, which we do. There was one that was speaking at VITA's conference. Every day they get a call to sell and move to another state. And they're offered
Right.
workforce ready to go, everyone that they need. And they're offered permits. Here you go. This is where we want to grow a business. Permits are handed. And they're able to grow there. That business has chosen to keep part of their business here, but they're growing elsewhere as well.
Right.
If we want to see wages grow in Vermont, we have to support business growth in Vermont. And I think that has not been a top priority. And, you know, we would love to be a partner in seeing how we can continue to support business growth, because as a business grows in size, they are able to provide higher wage jobs. So if we look at what other states are doing to have higher wage jobs, they're investing in business growth.
Are you going to be able to, either through yourself or through partners or people that you identify, provide testimony to support that argument,
Yes.
particularly with respect to actual ideas about what needs to be done in order to speed up the process, or to streamline the process, or to provide a new process that will help business growth exponentially over where we are right now, particularly with regard to those employers that could bring a significant amount of business and business jobs to Vermont. The second piece is we, as you know, have problem The problem we used to have is we always wanted business to come in because we wanted jobs for our people. And now we have the actual reverse. Are you going to provide any thoughts to us about how to get more people to fill the jobs that we can't fill right now?
And
Our favorite subject.
Senator Brock, we are gonna bring some ideas. We're open to feedback. There's no silver bullet, but we have some thoughts.
Okay,
We'd
Is
love
that
to share.
contained inside today's brief?
Yes.
right, okay.
Okay. So incremental progress. So looking at, some of the pieces, whether it's, clean heat standard, data privacy, we have big goals and need to ensure that as we're looking at those goals, how our business is able to come along in a productive way, and we're not pushing so hard that folks are left out of the conversation or are not able to comply or keep up, right? Businesses in Vermont want to be part of a green future, want to support their customers, want good solutions for families, but they can't absorb it all at once. And we're seeing that around the affordability piece, right? There was a lot that's happened, and folks are struggling with how are we going to stay here. So as we're looking at incremental progress, we're not an organization of no. We don't come in and say, absolutely not. No, we're not doing it. But we want to say, how can we be partners in this to make it manageable? So we'll be at the table for that. Like that's something that we promise. We will be at the table for those conversations. And we appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity. Innovative solutions. This gets to the demographics. How do we tackle our demographic challenges, as well as the housing piece, where we're going to be, telling communities, we want you to build homes. You need to stop saying no. We also have heard from communities that have said, great, we don't have the infrastructure to do this. And, when folks have their property taxes go up, the level that they've had to go up the last few years, when the town goes and says, we need a $50 million bond for wastewater, our residents are saying, absolutely not. We can't take any more. So the towns are put in this position where they're hearing, we need to say yes to housing. We need to have the infrastructure to do it. And we don't have the taxing capacity anymore. Not for anything, the towns, what the school board's role in that is separate from the municipal offices. And so we need to find some innovative ways to help towns do that infrastructure, and then not get the infrastructure and then say no to housing.
Right.
So the carrot in the stick approach is saying, we want to support you in the infrastructure. And
To that end, my assumption is that you'll be partnering with us on proposing project-based tips and mini tips.
I've been talking about it for 5 years. They'll still be talking about it.
Good.
Absolutely. All right. As I do, talked way through that slide, some of the things I'm talking about. One of the pieces of data that we wanted to show for this affordability piece is looking at the per capita tax collection. Vermont is number 3. North Dakota is number 1, which people are shocked by. Any guesses as to why North Dakota would be number 1?
This is fun.
Fracking is their severance tax is fracking. So they collect a lot of tax on people who are fracking. And so that pushes them to number 1. We don't collect that much tax from folks who are taking natural resources out of our trees. So we're not going on the same level there. So ours is really coming, that number 3 spot is really coming from our businesses and residents for things like income tax, property tax, corporate tax. This is from the US Census.
Who's in the middle between the 2 states, Vermont and North Dakota?
Hawaii, my glasses.
Huh?
Hawaii.
High visitor economy taxes. That
Right.
is the main driver.
Yeah.
So, the nice thing is we add a lot more people, that per capita rate goes down. So we're in favor of adding more people, but also, until we get more people, adding more tax or shifting taxes, saying instead of a property tax, we'll move to an income tax. what we want to highlight here is we are on all of the taxes, all state tax collection, we're already very, folks are feeling it. And so that's why we're talking about critical reforms and trying to really head on address our demographic challenges so we can have more people
More
who are paying
taxpayers.
in to the system.
Or do
Right. More taxpayers, more ratepayers in the healthcare, right? Like
Yes.
all of that is important. So this is from the US Census. I can try and remember to send out the link. These are live, so you can see how this has changed from 1980 to today. And you can also look at each state type of state tax that's collected to see where we've fallen and how that's changed over the years. And it is something to see.
In New Hampshire, our next door neighbor, the bottom of the run. No comment.
So our incremental progress, look here at our labor force and population by age.
And this is directly from what will be in the economic action plan. Just to frame a little bit of, I guess, your preview that you'll get in February. Kevin is really focusing on, yes, there's a people and places framework, but within each of those frameworks, there is a look at efficiency strategies and then expansion strategies. How do we increase our labor force participation that we do currently have? So when you're looking at the chart on the screen, the dark green is the population, the light green is the labor force there. And expansion strategies are focusing on how do we grow that darker green in there.
Yeah. And then doing that.
Does he, sorry, I have to ask, but is he gonna come with specific
Yes.
recommendations?
Yeah, there are specific.
Randy and I are very excited about that, aren't we, Randy?
Oh, yes.
Our committee has been very behind this.
I mean, but I think this also really speaks to the need for generationally specific housing. Because we don't have a lack of single family homes. We have a lack of single family homes that have families in them. And where seniors don't want to live in them anymore because they can't maintain them. So
We need to invest in the churn. Because those older people want to go to much smaller.
Right.
they do.
JFO has a great demographic report that they put out the last couple of years. And there's a line from it that I thought was very pointed line that said something like, we either need to export a lot of our seniors or move in a lot of young people. We support keeping all of our seniors, having great options for them to stay part of the community. And importing a lot of working age folks. And Kevin will also have great data about who is not participating in the workforce right now and what are the numbers there to really focus strategies. Where is the biggest bang for the buck? If we're talking about where do we want to invest for workers to enter the workforce, he's got good data around who's not currently participating.
We have also worked on that and continue to work on that. That'll be some. And this morning, I actually had, and I've been in touch with DOL, the last couple of days about this program Retain with bringing disabled people back into the workplace, reducing their barriers to getting back. There are lots of efforts that are federal and state partnerships, and this is a big piece of what we can be doing this year.
I think that population is going to be critical to ensuring we're bringing folks into the workforce. And then those innovative solutions for people and places. So this is just a graph on where we're at with building permits. Nothing new, I think, for many folks here to see that we are not, we're making progress, but we need to be seen. We need to see an up line in 2024 the way we saw a down line in 1990.
Can you, go ahead.
What do the gray bars represent?
Those are periods of session.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if we made sure that we remove permit requirements, but we still capture the units that creates. I know I'm asking you to like do our job, but you know, one of the things we worried about when we vastly increased thresholds or removed permit requirements, it's still just it was the whatchamacallit, the JO, the jurisdictional opinion
Right.
piece. We still wanted to know that the units were being built.
And I think these are permits that are pulled from municipal. Not
Okay,
through the
okay.
state JO.
So everyone gets a
Process.
permit. Okay, great.
Is this a new construction or renovation? Does it matter?
These are new construction units that are permitted.
And I believe the number identified by VHFA is we need 7,000 per
Yeah.
year, and we're at 24.
So real.
Which is
opportunity.
There's room for growth.
but there's lots of room for growth.
Lots
There are
of-
opportunities,
Lots of
things to celebrate
opportunities.
and
Yeah.
opportunities.
And it's exciting to see that the exemptions and the interim exemptions that you all really fought hard for, thankfully, last year are working. You know, that folks are increasing the number of units that they are building. Which I think is also reflective that folks are building the number of units so they don't have to go through that process. And that's, you know, that's part of this whole reform is we shouldn't have regulatory processes that people try and avoid, right? That the fact that we have to incentivize people to avoid them, I think speaks to a larger problem, and hope that that's part of the mission of the new LURB is to ensure.
Thank you. I just don't want to hear.
So LURB is not so bad. It's much better than NAG, which we heard about this morning. So
I would agree.
I think.
That part of what that is ensuring that tagline that is on the NRB's website, I don't know if it's now the LURB's website, is that it's, you know, fair, fast and affordable, or whatever the tagline is, that's what we're achieving, so that if someone goes through that process, it's predictable and timely, and it's not something that folks feel like have to avoid.
Right, okay.
Would you
Yeah.
characterize the reason why it's working is either 50-50 or more so the fact that the Act 250 process presented so much uncertainty through the appeals process as opposed to the actual fees associated to it? Or is it really a mixture of both?
I think for our developers who are seasoned, the threat of appeals
Experience.
is certainly part of it. Our developers who are maybe entering this for the new time, it's for the first time, reputation. They want to avoid it because they hear it's a nightmare.
Okay.
They don't know, they've never been through it. And that's also what we hear. Like, if you know it, if you've got someone in your team who knows the process, then you can go through it. If you've never been through it, it's intimidating and it's a lot. But not,
But
and it's not the same across the state, which is something that we need to work on. It's a state program. It needs to be predictable across the state.
yes, myth, assumption, reputation.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask a question?
Patience.
So someone shared this with me when I spoke at the home builders dinner last night. And I'm not gonna be able to get away from comparing this to every other solution that we've talked about. But as I understand it, Massachusetts does not stop the project from continuing to be built while it's in court.
Do we?
I want to find that law. Oh, yes. I mean, that's
So
what
we
we've been
get-
talking about. They have an incentive
Well, we-
to stop a project for 3 years until it's no longer financially viable.
Well,
Randy, are you hearing this? Because this is
Yeah.
all, and to me, is the whole appeals question
Yeah.
is you have an incentive to get a fair and expedited result if you are not stopping the project with every new appeal.
Right. or even.
I can't think of anything that makes
the
more sense.
risk of
What
if you lose.
if you lose, you're required to do some remediation at the end. If it sounds too good to be true, tell me, because appeal bond was too good to be true. But if this is what's happening in other states, and maybe after a certain appeal threshold, this project is going to go forward. If you want to appeal, like, knock yourself out. I cannot think of a better solution to actually just get behavior that makes sense in our courts.
Well, I would think though that the one thing, if I'm a builder, if I am going to continue to build while an appeal is pending, not knowing what the potential outcome is, and whether or not the project will be stopped, killed, or made too costly.
That's why we should look at
Details
Massachusetts law,
Of
because it's
how that
working.
works is really critical.
It is.
I think we should definitely look at Massachusetts law.
Yeah.
But I think in some cases, we don't even start these projects, let alone have them be interrupted by, I mean, some things just don't get started. But we have some very exciting appeal
Yeah.
suggestions that are floating in the air. And so we will come back to this.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Around people, do you want to talk about that? Okay, so we will send you our white paper on this. We've had some conversations with the administration and with folks in House Commerce. Something that we've seen a couple other states doing that we would love to pilot in Vermont is a relocation branding toolkit. So this is thinking about the amazing job that our tourism folks do in promoting Vermont as a place to visit. Beautiful imagery, beautiful videos. They do phenomenal work. And you all invested in the Grow grants as a, sort of a first step of how are we going to do relocation and getting some of our great regional partners engaged in doing some relocation work, bringing people into their areas.
Everything from stay to stay to.
Yeah, Cedar does a great job in Rutland. Bennington does a great job. There are probably others, but they're doing great work around how do we welcome people into Vermont. If there's a new family that moves in, how do we make sure they feel welcomed? How do we, they like partner them up? Like what are the restaurants? What are the things that you should do? Where do you buy your groceries? All that. Vermont Professionals, Color Network do a great job. I don't think they're part of the program.
Yeah.
There it is.
Like, what are they not
Like,
part
I
of?
knew
That would be
another group that's doing phenomenal work there. So that it was, I think that's been a really good first piece. Something we would love to see, which Nebraska has done, Colorado has done, New Hampshire is now doing, is this idea of a relocation branding toolkit that's available to businesses and communities, where we get some of these great marketing minds to think about, what is it that our state is doing that makes it a really desirable place to be? And so that can be anything from pulling together our commitment to a green future, putting our values into what does our green future look like, and the great jobs that we have in the green economy. So you can come to Vermont if you believe in a green future. We believe in it. We have statutory goals around it. And we have incredible jobs in it. And you can live in microgrid communities and really live and work your values in Vermont. We can look at the number of our trades people who are hoping to retire. Their solopreneurs need someone to sell their business to. What are the states that are graduating more people in the trades than there are trades jobs available? Let's talk about the great work that the SBDC in Vermont does to get people ready to buy a business. We can bring you to Vermont, hold your hand through that process, and you have a business with customers, and we have incredible golfing, fishing, and skiing. And
Access to outdoor
we're building the homes for you to live in. If you are in a part of the country that doesn't have the same commitment to reproductive rights that Vermont has put in its constitution, we also have incredible nursing training programs here. You can move here, we're going to pay you to become a nurse, and you can work in a field that you're committed to, and you can come and live and work your values. Putting together marketing for lots of different types of people who could all see the value in being a Vermonter, putting that together, and then allowing our communities and our businesses to access it, so they can be partners in that relocation effort, we think is a great way to just be another piece in that puzzle.
And
We also-
as you know, DOL has, we worked with DOL, particularly with Sarah Buxton, who had a very strong relocation package designed to reach out and help people transition to living here and provide access to all sorts of resources.
Yeah.
So I think, and Heather Pelham, so this is a
Right.
This
How do
is
we
a
get them
confluence
here
of-
and then keep them here as part of that grow grant and the DOL work? But how do we let people know of the different things? I think especially that the legislature has done, when I'm in here and people tell me, Megan, we really want the Vermont Chamber to support this. If we do this, people will move here. My response is usually like, how? Like, why are they gonna move here? Like, great, I fully support us getting more nurses and funding programs to get people through the nursing program. If that lives 5 pages down on a website, people don't know about it.
Yeah.
So, we need to, I think it's also part of our retention. Like, we need to let Vermonters know the things that we're doing. We try and do that in our newsletter every year. Like, here are the things the legislature did this year to help you recruit and retain employees. If you're not reading my newsletter, though, you may not know those things have happened. So, I think marketing isn't always the most popular word, but we need to do a better job of marketing the things that we're investing in a way that brings those pieces together to someone to say, like, all right, this could be a place for me.
But you're right, marketing it to the world and marketing it also to our own
Residents.
I think, I've never been a fan of the relocation dollars program because it is the cart before the horse in my mind in terms of the housing. I think the most valuable thing we could do in this regard is support employers being able to create relocation housing. And that is a fight often at the regional and local level. When I hear the plans for the Hula project, I want it to be 5 stories taller. I want a floor dedicated to climate displacement, right? I want the toolkit. It's all good. Like, obviously we play a small part of that, but we are also, we also know employers are saying we're not going to be able to wait for everybody else's solution. While we don't want them to be landlords, I think we need to give them a relocation toolkit that says, you want to build housing, you want to attract people, like, we're gonna give you a tax break and, help you with the municipal process to do that. Like, I've been saying to the administration, we can't be claiming victory because we change laws. We need to claim victory when the units of housing are filled and people are in them.
100%. I would say we can walk and chew gum. Like,
Right.
no one's gonna see an ad.
Right.
Saying,
And we
like-
like and chew gum, I guess is my question.
I think we have to.
Like, we have
Yeah,
to.
right.
The
But the
pandemic
housing.
demographic challenges are not gonna go
Yeah.
away. And no one's gonna see something and be like, I am moving to Vermont tomorrow. Maybe they will. I would love that. But we have to be building the housing and we have to be figuring out how we find some innovative ways to deal with our demographic challenges. I know this isn't this committee's jurisdiction, but we have also been very supportive of exempting military pensions from taxation. Retired military professionals are incredibly diverse and are ready for a second career.
Well, that's because they retired.
Because they retired. That and
Sacrifice a lot for their service.
I think 4 of us are signed on to that.
That's correct. And so many of them have spouses who also work,
right.
who bring skills and who have children to fill all these empty school desks that we have.
And it's amazing when you talk to folks that this matters.
Well, this is a
Right.
major
It
effort that some of us are involved in
matters.
this year.
Yeah.
Megan, if you could
We're
give me a
on board.
call
Yeah.
sometime separately, I'd like to talk with you.
Well, we've begun this work and we already have exempted up to
Yeah.
10,000 of income. We also would argue that those who come and retire to Vermont who have had a military career also earn a lot of money. So I think it's also a fairness piece. And also we have a ton of retirees from the State Department and from other incredible NGOs who also have contributed their life to public service. I think it's a big discussion. Thank
We'll
you.
have it.
I think
Yeah.
that's great.
I just
but
want
think
to
it's-
proud. So people and places, right? That's
I just don't want it sort of the assumption to lie out there that everyone in our military earns a lot of money. I mean, I'm a sponsor of this bill because my grandfather was a World War II veteran who had a Purple Heart, and he was in the other state that taxes pensions, California, and he worried about money every day. So I just, I just don't want us
And
all
Vermont's
to
an outlier
have silence
where we
around
are
it.
Oh,
compared to the rest of the
We're
nation.
definitely an outlier, but I think tax department will show you what you're gonna go through this with the bill, so you'll see what retired military are in the state. Anyway,
We'll,
big discussion.
big discussion.
I'm glad you brought it up.
But
It's an economic question.
No, I mean, I think it's an important discussion.
So the people and places continue to be top priority for us. How do we deal with our housing crisis in a really accelerated and productive way? And think of innovative ways to continue to look at what are we going to do about our demographic challenges? And obviously the federal piece is huge on that, in the ability to allow more immigration into the state, as part of the solution. We are partner with the Declaration of Inclusion efforts that Al Wakefield leads, which is where I think we're over 100 now.
Yeah, they had over 100.
Yeah.
In fall.
Over 100 of our 252 possible.
Yeah.
Sounds great,
And still continuing on the work.
but we're not yet to have.
But it's over, I want to say it's like 75% of the population that's represented. It may be even more than 75%. So it's a significant portion of the population that is represented by towns adopting.
And is there one crowd that's leading that, or is it just sort of town inspired by town inspired?
So
Who's leading
there,
that charge?
there's a core group of about 4 that are based in Rutland County that are leading the charge and connecting with local communities. So they are traveling around the state, presenting to select boards, to city councils. So it's really those 4 that are driving it and making the local connections and having those conversations. So that's really how it's propelling forward.
Seeing these amazing young people, I want to bring up one more, Kevin, data point around our demographic challenges. Updated DOL information shows that we have 17.5 thousand people retiring in the state every year.
Right.
We are graduating about 5,300 seniors a year. So that's a pretty significant difference there, 13.5, and number of people who are graduating, number of people retiring. We are doing great work at importing college students and then do a terrible job at keeping them after they graduate.
Well, it's improving, but it
We're
has
working
been terrible.
We're working on it. But that the demographic challenge, I think,
Yeah.
for the workforce is
It's actually gotten
highlighted
worse.
there about
Yeah.
the
We used to
number.
be Wall Street Journal's, places that are most college friendly in Chittenden County because people could leave college and find
Right.
housing and a job. And now that they can't find housing,
Right.
we're off that list. It's gotten worse, actually.
And if we just look regionally, if we get to where Maine is with retaining their college graduates, we'd be in a far different position. So there's like this incremental step that we can even take in retaining college students. It would make it
So
exponential.
the figure that's missing from those 2 figures is how many college kids are graduating every year from in Vermont,
10,000,
roughly.
and we retain 3, I believe. I'll get the numbers. from Kevin.
Yeah, because I think,
Yeah.
It's a very low percentage.
and we're helping, we've created this incentive,
Yeah,
which has been
utilized.
utilized fully each year that the 3 years we've had.
So apparently if you go for a Fulbright scholarship for a year, you're not eligible.
Well, that's because it pays you.
Did you have full
It
pay?
pays you the stipends in Spain. Yeah.
Right.
So he's
Welcome
back.
back.
Oh,
He's
You
back.
could stay in Spain.
So this brings us,
Jesus.
They're charging their second homeowners a lot more to move to Spain now, so.
this brings us to our work to try and keep great young minds in the state. Jeremy was an intern for us 2 years ago, and now he is running our legislative internship program. Do you want to talk a little bit about the folks we'll have here?
Which are these people here?
These are 5 of our 8 interns.
Yeah, so we have 8 paid interns throughout the legislative session. So we'll have 2 different interns every day, Tuesday through Friday. They're from Middlebury, St. Michael's College, UVM, so all throughout. And they will be here the entire day. They'll likely be in your guys' committee, depending on the day. You'll get different interns. If you guys do see them out and about in the halls, they'll have a name tag. Please do go up to them, introduce yourselves, say hello. They're here to learn. They're here to kind of see what it's like here. And yeah,
Are they tracking specific legislation? Are we gonna know that somebody's on, relocation, somebody's on
so
X, Y, or Z?
yeah, so since they're only here like once a week each, it's tough to keep them tracking like one specific piece when they're not here every day. But we do try to keep them in like general fields. So like if we have one intern that's like in like House Commerce, for example, then the likelihood that they'll be going back to House Commerce is high so that they can kind of continue to follow the issues that they were working on the previous week. It'll just be difficult for them to, follow it every single day since they're not here every day.
And is each one of their institutions giving them credit for this work?
If they're asking for credit, we're helping to provide them with credit.
Because, we're all very familiar with the UVM model.
Yeah.
There
One
are
of
some
the
students who don't need
interns
credit.
Also is an intern for me.
And perhaps it
No.
would be a moment for you to introduce your intern.
It's a different intern. This is
Oh.
Andrew Ronaldo, one of my interns.
Say your name again.
Andrew
Andrew
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo from UVM.
Okay. Ever since I had kids, I can't hear anything but my baby's crying. I seem like the deaf one in the room now.
And we have a new intern by the name of Rick Sampson, who also is an intern for the chamber, who also will be working for me. And so we will have some overlap.
Great. And he also a student at UVM.
He's also a student at UVM, and part of the UVM program.
He's here today, actually. He's in House Environment right now, I think.
And I'll just speak for myself, but please have them feel safe and comfortable introducing themselves to me, to us, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And we try the first time they're in a committee to come in with them so we can introduce them and that's what we're hoping to do is also introduce them to the other folks in the building. So if they're interested in environmental policy, we'll introduce them to the folks that are working on environmental advocacy or that are working for A&R, so they can see the different career paths. If they're interested in business, we're going to try and keep them at the chamber. we'll introduce them to the, whether it's the contract lobbyists or the organizations or the state, to try and do our part with these 8 kids every year of keeping them in the state when they graduate.
And we do have another one from Jeremy's class that's on our chamber team now as well. So 2 graduates from our program that are
Graduating from internship to paid employment. Great.
they could run.
And then another one of the interns that was an intern in my year is working for the Vermont Department of Health now, who he kind of learned about through the internship.
Great. Perfect. Exactly. Well, just think of how much the state government they get to understand and have access to. Great.
Can I
They should.
go back to so my brain went from relocation branding to Maine. And at some point, someone pointed out to me that Maine's branding went from vacation land to welcome home. And can we find those people and bring them? Like, I really do think there's
That'd be great to
something
hear
to
from.
going from this, we're second homeland to we are asking you to not just the way life should be, but this is life, So Maine did something I think very important at some point that said we're not just going to be a playground for rich people. We're going to attract working people here.
Yeah, and I think Vermont has some of that. We just want to elevate it.
I'd like to
get
know
it out
what Maine
there.
did.
And Maine has it. New Hampshire started. Nebraska. I love Nebraska. The Good Life is Calling.
Oh, good. Maybe we can get all those.
Yeah.
I have such an image in my head.
There's all those little slogans.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, we got the most attention with our remote worker program, in all honesty.
100%.
And so our relocation programs have gotten more attention than
Let's build
any
it.
other
Let's build
state.
on it. Right.
Give them a house.
No, get them a house. And then sadly, in many cases, this is sort of the insidious piece or challenge that we face is a lot of those second homeowners became full-time remote workers here. I mean, during COVID in Woodstock, I saw it a large percent.
That's not insidious. That's
No,
not-
but I mean, the plot, you're right, that piece isn't it. The challenge is that so many of our second homes are not are not transitioning in that regard. I mean, they're not becoming full-time homes. They're still second homes. 16% of our house has been. Yeah. So, yeah. But we did have the plots of that during COVID. Got lots of full-time people
Let's keep them.
who are remote and are luckily earning remote salaries. I mean, they're earning income from other states, so they're earning more.
Yeah, lot we can dig in on, but
Stay tuned.
Stay to Maine is our weekly newsletter. It goes out to all of our members. We send it out Friday afternoons, sort of wraps up what we think the business community needs to know about that's happening in the building. We send it to all of our members and we send it to all of you. So you'll see that come into your inbox Friday. If you have any questions about it, if you see something or if you're like, Megan, we did great things this week and I didn't see anything about it, just talk to me. Our team works on it collaboratively, and we want to make sure that the business community is hearing about good things that you're doing, and also areas where we might say, we need you guys to lift your voices a little bit on an issue that we're concerned about. Definitely feel free to talk to us about that. We'll also have spotlights on all of our interns in there, so you can learn more about them. And I think that's it. That's all we got.
How, if I may ask, how is your aviation? You had an aviation initiative I haven't heard you discuss here.
Yes, so we are broadening focus, and Jeremy, you can jump into as well. Broadening focus strategically now to be more all manufacturing, not just focusing on aviation. Aviation is still critically important. We're part of the aerospace corridor. We do a lot of work with our partners in Connecticut, also up in Quebec, but so still prominent, still a lot of the work that we do, but we're also broadening to be more inclusive of all of manufacturing so that we can represent all the different types of manufacturers.
Yeah, we host an annual manufacturing summit. We had it for in person the first time since COVID this year, and that kind of integrated in that wider range of manufacturers, although it still had a really strong presence like from our aerospace corridor. We had some people from Canada, some folks from Connecticut, Florida, like all over. And so the idea is I'm still going to be going to like the big events like Aeromart Montreal, really strengthening that relationship throughout the corridor, while at the same time,
bond.
Yeah. And so the first thing I did when I got into this position actually was to reach out to a bunch of Vermont manufacturers, ask like, hey, I've seen that you guys are based in Rutland, you guys are over in Bennington, you guys are in South Burlington, like, can I come and tour and see what you guys do so that I can kind of learn about the different problems and like challenges that you guys are facing. And so that's another part of the new direction that we're taking is I'll be here full time Tuesday through Friday, really advocating for manufacturing businesses in particular in the State House.
Well, when we put together our economic development tour, we will chat with you about, and in fact would appreciate. Particularly I'm hearing Rutland now several times on this. And, but I think we're probably going to want to do a day touring 3-4 businesses and a range of things so that in the range of places. So that would be great. I'd love to have your input on that.
Be great.
And committee input on it as well, obviously. We're also going to be doing a small business Wednesdays, I think. Sustainable Jobs Fund and the Vermont SBA are helping us put together a real spotlight on small business and their needs, which we're going to be doing last Wednesday of January and the first Wednesday of February. So we're going to be focusing on their needs and the opportunities.
Are you bringing small businesses in for that? Are you looking for
Ellen Kaler and Linda Ross?
We'll chat with
They're designing.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a great year. I mean, we have our challenges, but we also, as you so aptly point out, we need to be celebrating the things that are going well. We also need to keep supporting them in ways that are meaningful. Yeah, Keisha.
When I think about our business's appetite to engage with us and come visit us. You know, I have to imagine that the continued dampening effect from the data privacy bill is weighing on their minds. After we left session, you know, the chamber was named in an article. We were both in an article that I think was unfair and unfounded. Wildly misleading about our very local business community that employs hundreds of people. So I know that we can only do so much at Senate Economic Development, but I think, you know, we owe the business community an apology and a real commitment to listening to their voices when they speak up. They have their brand and reputation at stake, and I don't want them to feel like, you know, they're putting that at risk by talking to us about the challenges to the cost of doing business and to employing Vermonters. So I just want to state that on the record.
I really appreciate that and appreciate what you said on the floor about that during the veto session last year. It was incredibly challenging. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like it where you know, it wasn't sort of like, well, we'll agree to disagree. And I would say this was not as much at all on the Senate. But when one of our members testified, and that was followed up by an op-ed that really was, I think, misleading and inappropriate in the way that it spoke about that business leader from members of the House. We did get calls from members that said, my business can't afford to be treated like that. If we come in, we're not going to come into the building anymore. Some were concerned, some were angry, but that did have a dampening effect on our members' willingness to come in. We know that they can come in, and there may be disagreements, and there may be hard questions, and that's okay. But it still has to be respectful and a civil discourse.
We couldn't agree more fully, and thank you for that feedback. I think we promise to always treat every business that comes in with respect and civility and appreciation, because everyone who makes time to come and testify is giving up time. And we are very grateful for every business that comes and helps us do our business better. So I have never experienced in my 20 years in the legislature, I have never experienced that in committee. I think most of us treat every witness and everyone who contributes to our work.
And I think we're going to see, our conversations in all committees are that was just a unfortunate process, and that everyone is looking forward in the House and Senate this year and moving on in a really productive and civil way on an important topic.
Well, you have a commitment from us that is the way we will do this.
And that we won't reward behavior of others who don't live up to that standard. That's what I've asked for.
Appreciate that. Will that be in this committee?
Yes, probably. Data privacy is starting in the House. Yeah. But as we work on the jurisdictions with technology and institutions, which is still just institutions, that is more the delivery of IT and not the substance that's consumer protection. So my guess is whatever bills come from the House will end up in this committee.
And so one additional team member that you should know about, because this is a very highly technical issue, we felt it was important that not only Vermont businesses have an advocacy voice looking at this, but a legal voice. So we are going to be working with Josh Diamond. He's joining the chamber team to work on technology issues. So he'll be, if we're in this committee talking about that, it'll likely be he and I who are here to have those conversations.
That's good heads up.
Yeah.
Great.
Speaking of tech, the Tech Hub just got a $23 million valuation. What can we expect? Are you all part of the hub? Like, what are we doing?
Championing it?
Yes.
Championing it. I think that there is, tech is one of the emerging fields that all economists are looking at in Vermont. It's like the nascent technology. How can we make sure we're taking advantage of that for our economy? And that is one of the prime opportunities. I was just on a call with the chief economist from MVT Bank the other day. And he was, one of the points of the conversation was we need to, as Vermont, make sure that we are taking advantage of nascent technologies and that we're really investing in that manufacturing and that tech and hub space because that will help our economy.
Yes, absolutely. And that leads into our conversation. I think all of us are very interested in is access to capital, what we can do in the legislature to improve and enable our companies to keep growing. You already mentioned, Megan, that we're great at starting companies and then we need to be able to grow them. And that's where I think we can help in some capacities, not all, but certainly in some.
Yeah.
This is terrific. I'm hoping that we will, Keisha gave me the alert yesterday and then Vermont Public did a great story on it today. So on the tech hub and their money that they've gotten, and we'd love to hear how that's going to be used. And we just need an update from them anyway. So we'll be getting them in.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Great. We go forward. And thank you very much for your partnership with us and for
Thank you.
helping illuminate the state of business in Vermont.
Absolutely. Look forward to working with you this biennium.
Here.
Very
Right.
much.
We, I think, can go off live.